real. It's relevant. It's life. It's the Power for Living show with the empowerment doctor, Tori L. Anthony.
Good evening, and thank you for tuning in to the Power for Living radio show with your host, the empowerment doctor, Tori L. Anthony. This evening, before we start, I would just like to let you know that Power for Living approaches those issues we live with and through every day with a kingdom mindset, the real, raw, and relevant issues that allow us to grow our knowledge and understand in our daily walk with God. However, sensitive to the subject we discuss, they may not necessarily be the views and opinions of the host and or the Powerful Living creative team as a whole. Again, thank you for tuning in to the Powerful Living radio show with your host, Tori L. Anthony, the Empowerment Doctor. Today's show topic, living in the lives that others have and think of you. Living through the lives that others have and think of you. Today we have two very important people here with us that's going to discuss a topic of being trapped in the life that others think of you. With us, we have Jocelyn and Karen here. Say hello to our listening audience, ladies.
Hello, all.
Hello.
So we're going to start with the question, and then that'll help you understand further what the show is really about. One question, then I'm going to ask Karen and Jocelyn both. Karen, you can answer the question first. Is before the interview really gets started, can you please educate our listeners and our audience your personal truths about transgender and what the difference in the various categories are?
Well, in my particular instance, I would be what they would call a transsexual, meaning that my central nervous system and brain are more wired as a female, whereas my chromosomes resemble that of a male. And my, other stuff as well. So there are differences. There are many variations of transgender. It's kind of an umbrella term. So you have within that several different categories. But in my particular instance, I am a pre-op transsexual. I would like to eventually get the surgery and completely live 100% of the time the way I feel, which is as a woman.
Jocelyn, how about you?
Pretty much I basically go along with the same thing that Karen just stated. I am a transsexual. I do live my life as a female. I've been like that, basically living my life as a female now for the past 3 years. And I just feel like I'm myself. I'm, just natural. It's me. It's who I am.
So it's naturally who you are. Can either one of you tell me what is the difference in homosexual and transgender, or considering yourself as a woman?
Homosexual is basically you like the same sex. You can be a homosexual male or female. When you are a transgendered individual, you basically are saying that the body that you're in is not what you're supposed to be. Whether you're a transgender female to male or you're a transgendered male to female. And myself, I basically knew from a very early age that that was not who I wanted to be. I didn't want to be a boy. I didn't like living as a boy. I wasn't comfortable as a boy. But when this world got introduced to me, it brought out the true me, and I love it. I feel like a weight has been lifted off of my shoulders. I feel like I can be myself now.
So I would say to that homosexuality and bisexuality and heterosexuality are all orientations as to who you're attracted to, whereas transgender is an identity, a self-identity issue. So there are two different areas of the brain, two different things that we're looking at. So a person can be trans, and this is where it gets a little dicey, because you could be trans and consider yourself gay or consider yourself straight or bi, or you could be cisgendered, which is a person whose body and self-identity matches, and you could be all those things as well. So the difference is for transgender people, our self-image does not match our body as opposed to who we are attracted to, which is what the orientation is.
So with what you just said, Karen, I need you to help me, because when I think of transgender myself, I not only think of it as you wanting to change your outer appearance, but I also think of it as being what you're attracted to. So are you telling me that you could just want to change your outer appearance because you feel like you want to be this woman, or vice versa if it was a woman to male, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're attracted to?
Exactly.
Wow.
That doesn't exactly mean that you will be. There are several trans women that are male to female that are attracted to females. But because of the way their self-identity is and the way that they feel, is that they cannot be true to themselves by pretending to be male.
So in that instance, so then if they're transgender and they're male to female, so they change their look to become a female, and then they still like women. So now you're telling me that they become what would be considered a lesbian.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, pretty much. But not everybody. It's not as simple as that. There's gray areas, but yes, essentially that is exactly how it goes down. I mean, I know a lot of trans women that like other women, and there are trans men that like other men that are not interested in women. But they're two different things, totally different things.
Wow. Okay, I have another question. When did you begin to realize that you were experiencing a gender identity crisis? How old were you, Jocelyn?
I was basically about 4 or 5 years old, and I knew I wanted to be with men. I wasn't looking at little girls. I didn't want to be. I actually told my mother one time that I would rather wear a dress and stockings because it looks like it's easier to put on and put up with than versus putting on pants and a shirt and a tie and socks and all of that. I didn't like any of that. That stuff made me feel uncomfortable. But, you know, when you are basically the first grandchild, you have to, it's basically everything is on you. You know, you're the first, so they dress you up and they put you in this and they put you in that, and they want you to look like this and they want you to look like that. And the whole time you're just growing up like, oh my God, when is this just going to be over? You know, and it's a thing that you're fighting within yourself. And then you get to that point where you don't want to let people down. So you do what they want. You do what they want you to do. You don't do what you want to do. You don't express yourself the way you want to express yourself. And that's where the problem comes in. And that's where the confusion and everything comes in. But I knew at a very, very early age that I didn't want to be a boy. I didn't know exactly where I wanted to go with it or how I wanted to go about doing it. But I knew then I didn't want to be a boy.
It's funny that you say that, because a few months back I was reading, and that's what really made me want to do this show. I was reading an article about a family who had a very young child, like 4 or 5, like you say you were, and the child, excuse me, did not want to be a little girl. And they would dress her in all the big frilly dresses and do everything, but she wanted to be a boy. And shockingly, when they made her look like, well, not made her look like a boy, because the only thing that they did was cut her hair. But she resembled a boy. But I personally had an issue that they would allow her to change at 4 or 5. They literally went all the way with this child. I didn't agree with that.
Well, you know, out in California, Mexico, China, several different countries, when they see at an early age that their child is not what they were born as, they immediately go ahead and start switching them over. If you live in Mexico and your child is born, and say at the age of 2 or 3 you have a son and you see that he's more feminine, and he's playing with dolls and all that, they'll immediately put them on hormones to switch them on over to a girl so that they can live their lives as girls.
And that's what actually the child was Mexican, and that is what happened at that young age. They started the transitioning at that young age, and naturally a lot of people knocked it because it was a child. And you know, children go through certain phases. Like, I've had a lot of cousins that was tomboys, or, you know, but now women, show enough women. So how do you, I just didn't.
You establish it. I mean, you can tell a tomboy from a girl who actually wants to be a boy. A tomboy is going to play rough with the boys, but she's still going to have her moments where she likes her pink dolls and her dresses and all of that. She's not going to mind it at first. She's going to be like, but she'll get used to it. Those that are actually born like that and want to be, they don't like it, period, flat out. They'll tell you, I don't like that. No, I don't want that. I'm good. Or if you put them in it, they just standing there looking like, this ain't working. You know, so a lot of people nowadays are trying to resolve the problem before it gets to a point where you're at an issue and then you don't know where you went wrong with your child, what's going on with your child, or your child just runs away and you never hear from him again.
Wow. Karen, what age were you when you realized that this is not working out for me? This is not who I am.
I pretty much knew when I learned the difference between boys and girls. That's when I knew. When I found out that, you can't do that because girls do that. And I'm like, why not? Because girls do that. So, well, okay, I'm a girl. No. So it was pretty much at that age. I think if people listen to their kids and really pay attention to their lives, you will see that if you have a trans child, that they are authentic in their self-identity. And studying that identity and watching it over a period of time, you really... If it was up to me, if I could go back in time, I would want to be put on testosterone blockers before I hit puberty. I would want to be on hormones in my teenage years so that I could develop and live as authentic a life as possible. But it all happens before we even have like a sense of sexuality, so to speak. It's just the innocent, masculine and feminine traits that kids have, and you recognize it in yourself. But how do you convince your parents? Well, I'm this way, and that's just how it is. Well, back then you just didn't do that.
So let me ask you, because I'm, before the show I research and I find out information. So how, with you knowing that you were not who you were, how did you still determine to serve for the United States Armed Services?
Well, that's kind of a funny one, because it's almost a layered thing, because when I first...
You are listening to a rebroadcast of a program that has previously aired as a part of WGNU's St. Louis Urban Forum. Our listener response lines are currently closed. Please consult www.wgnu920am.com for our complete schedule of programs. Make sure to tune in, call in, and be a part of the radio station that is working to improve our great city. We thank you for tuning in to WGNU's St. Louis Urban Forum on 920 AM.
Was interested in going in the military. One of the things in the back of my mind was, something's wrong with me and I have to fix it. I don't know why I feel like a woman. I don't know why I identify that way. But I'm going to join the military. That'll toughen me up. That'll cure me, so to speak, and I'll just go on my merry way. And then part of that, I don't know, if I go in I had this in the back of my mind, that if I went in the military, and not to be morbid, but if I didn't make it out alive, at least I would leave my family with something to honor.
Wow.
So that they would have a memory that they could,
Wow. I'm glad that you brought up family, because the next question is, how has your family accepted your changes? Do they call you by your new name, or do they call you by your birth name? Do they even call you period?
Majority of my family is supportive. Of course, I've fought this for 40 years, so me coming out is pretty recent, and I've been out and living that way, but I've actually been working this way just since October, and I got my name changed in November. But I guess it all kind of came to a head. I was pretty much at the point of suicide when it all went down, so it took them a while to study it. I sent them, some clinical data on the condition and everything. And once they read what doctors were saying and what medical institutes were saying, I think even though they still can't quite wrap their mind around it, I think they understand that it's a medical condition and that it's not something that's a deviant sexual perversion, so to speak. So they're accepting for the most part. I have a few members that maybe aren't quite as on board, but that's just, how it's going to be anywhere. Mm-hmm. But I've been lucky. I've been very lucky to have friends and family support me.
Well, I heard you say that you've been working since October like this. So are you still working on the job you were working as a male, or did you have to leave that job?
Yes. Luckily, I work for a company that is very progressive. It is a very diverse environment. There are people from every kind of culture, every walk of life, you name it. So it is a very good environment as far as, expressing yourself, being yourself, and being able to work in a professional manner without having to, deal with little battle, the whole. Right. For the most part, it's a non-issue. Wow. I just go into work, I do my job, I go home, and everybody does their, so it's not been a problem.
Wow. I applaud your company. I applaud the organization that you work for allowing you to do such things. There are a lot of companies that would have said, hey, no, we can't have that here.
Yeah, so I am very blessed and very lucky to have all the things I have right now.
Wow. Jocelyn, I did do some research on you, and I do know from reading part of your bio that this question could possibly be a very touchy question for you in regards to family. From reading, I do know that, like Karen did a lot of research, presented her family with a lot of information. But from reading your bio, I do understand that there have been some type of struggle, some issues dealing with your family in this issue. Can you give me the upsides and the downsides? Do they call you by your name, your new name, Jocelyn, or do they call you by your birth name?
Well, I had to pray long and hard on this. But to answer your question, it's pretty much split down the middle. On my mom's side of the family, they still call me by my boy name. They really don't understand it. And when people don't understand something, they tend to shy away from it or push it to the back. So I really don't, get a chance to be myself around them because they're so scared of what if. But on my dad's side of the family, it's kind of mixed emotions. My grandmother, she loves me unconditionally. And I think that's pretty much the rock of it that keeps me going. My cousins, they call me Jocelyn. They love me. It's, nothing different for them. My uncles are kind of up in the air, but, I don't even look at them or too much pay them any attention because, growing up, they weren't, in my eyesight, they weren't really around like that. So it's like, why am I wasting my time and my energy putting it into you? And with me, it's a mental thing, and I have to break it all down. At the end of the day, the only person that's going to be there for me is me. Wow. When I'm at home and I have all my bills in front of me and I have my rent in front of me, I don't get a phone call from anybody saying, hey, let me pay your rent. Hey, let me pay this. Hey, let me pay that. So at this point that I'm at, I really don't care if they like it or if they don't like it, but it's there. They should have known it was coming. I've been like this since I was little. I've been around my family for years with blonde hair, red hair, green hair, nails, the whole 9 yards. So it's not like that it wasn't present in front of them. Now they're sitting there with the point of, we have to actually face it. So I'm at that point where either way it goes, I love my family. It hurts me. I'm not allowed at certain family functions. And I have to get past it. And a lot of people have to go through that sometimes in life. A lot of transgenders that I know have went through that, where the family completely turns their back on them and they don't talk to them, and they're not allowed at Christmas, or they're not allowed at, 4th of July or anything of that nature. And it's only because they don't understand. And you get mad at first and you want to hurt people. You want to go off on people. But then you have to remember they're not where you're at. So you have to let them get there. And sometimes that takes time to do. And it's real hard. It's a struggle. I cry. I'll say at least every time a holiday comes around, I sit there and I cry because it's hard to not be with my family.
Let me ask you this question. How do you accept what your family has to say? And this is a question for both of you, or how your family feels about what you're going through and how you're living, and knowing their background, knowing their history, knowing what they've been into, and they bash you with what you're going through.
Well, the only person that I really truly have to respect is my mom and my grandmothers. And that's just how I feel. I was just recently told the other day that some of my uncles were upset with me because of the way that my father raised me, because he wouldn't let anybody touch me. But it was for my father to chastise me in my eyesight and not theirs. And I just look at it like, you can bash me, you can say what you want to, but you have no room. Nobody has any room to judge anybody else, because I've been there and seen everything that you have went through. Now, I can be just as evil as you, and I could put you all out on social media, but why would I do that? I won't gain anything from that.
That wouldn't be ladylike.
That wouldn't be ladylike at all, and I'm very much so a lady. So
I just had to throw that in there. That wouldn't be very ladylike.
It wouldn't be very ladylike.
That would be quite trashy.
It would, but honey, when you on hormones and your hormones are going up and down, 1 minute you can be happy and the next minute you'll be upset. And if they catch you on an upset moment, you might just tell them truly what's on your mind and bless them in the name of God. But you have to go on from that, and you have to learn these are still your elders. You still have to respect them, and you still have to move on. Because last time I checked, everybody is with sin.
That is correct.
Everybody's with sin, so that's how I look at it.
How about with you, Karen? How have it?
I haven't really had a whole lot of problems, so if there's a family member out there that has an issue with me, I think for the most part it's just an avoidance thing. I don't have to deal with a lot of confrontation over it. I think they pretty much figured out when I was ready to kind of, end my life for it that, oh, maybe she's serious. Maybe this is something a little more than just a whim or a perversion or something else like that. So, and since like I said, I sent them websites with the clinical data on it, and when they go through and they see that science is supporting that we are a natural variation, a biological variation in the human species, I think that kind of negates a lot of hate.
A question for both of you. Do you foresee getting married and having children? But before you ask that question, let me say this, that immediately following this show, we're going to begin to tape the after show, which you'll be able to go to www.p4lconnection and listen to on tomorrow, because we're going to continue this conversation. And again, please remember that Powerful Living approaches these issues we live with and through every day with a kingdom mindset, the real, raw, and relevant issues that allow us to grow our knowledge and understanding in our daily walk with God. However sensitive the subjects we discuss, they may not necessarily be the views and opinions of our host, myself, or the Powerful Living creative team as a whole. Now, can you answer the question, do either of you see yourself getting married and having children?
Well, I am actually getting married April the 13th, and
Congratulations.
thank you. And we are in the process of looking into adopting.
Wow. So you're getting married here?
We're actually getting married in the state of Illinois. It's not legal in Missouri yet, but we're getting married in the state of Illinois, and it will be legal, and I will be happy.
Wow. How about you, Karen?
I don't have any prospects, and I'm not really in a rush to get married. It may happen, it may not. I'm not as concerned about it. It would be nice to at least have someone to love and that would love me back, and that I don't know that I have the energy levels for children. I've got nieces and nephews, and they pretty much can wipe out my energy level really good. And that's with me taking a Super B complex and maybe, some other, stuff, caffeine or something like that. So I don't know if I got to a point to where I was married and I had the financial stability, I might consider adoption, but it's not anything that I'm considering now.
I do understand. What are some of your spiritual truths regarding this situation?
Well, I know that who my Lord and Savior is, and I know what I have to follow, and I know what I have to do, and I've spoken with him about my situation and about who I am and what I am, and I know that all I have to do is trust in God and everything will work out.
Karen?
Well, I've pretty much, for the past 40 years, tried to find a way out of this situation, so I've been fighting it and doing a lot of biblical studies and stuff like that. So for me, I've been fighting it, and I've decided that I need to just ignore everything else in the Bible except when Jesus says, love God and love your neighbor. And I just concentrate on those two things and leave the rest to God.
Thank you again for tuning in to the Powerful Living radio show with your host, Empowerment Dr. Tori L. Anthony. Please remember that you can listen to the rest of the show tomorrow at p4lconnection.com. Thank you and have a blessed evening.